For those not in the know, Windblown is a roguelike action RPG from Motion Twin, the developers of Dead Cells. I'm Calypso, and today we'll be showing you the difference between the gameplay of a newborn casual player like me and a more seasoned player like my boyfriend Cairus as we play Windblown for the first time. We had 3 runs each, and I'll talk about our experiences as we go through them. So without further ado, let's start with run number 1. It's a bit embarrassing, but my first run actually lasted less than 3 minutes. I was basically face tanking a lot of damage early on, especially from this conehead guy that kept charging. I actually had no hours spent playing similar games like Hades and Dead Cells. I generally prefer roguelites like Gunfireborn and Save the Spire. It took me quite a bit to recognize enemy attack patterns, especially these big guys. Admittedly, I was a bit impatient with my attacks and kept forcing the swap combo moves. The run ended because I refused to use potions as I didn't feel comfortable using them while being cornered by 2 enemies. Kai, on the other hand, had a smoother start. He was able to smoothly use the invincibility frames from the swap mechanic fairly easily right from the beginning. He still took some damage from the pesky conehead guy though, which did make me feel better about my own run-ins with the menace. The big difference I noticed was that he seemed to move and position much faster than I was able to. He was taking down multiple enemies in one clean move. And when it comes down to single targets, it becomes just as easy to tackle. Railgun Cannon guy didn't even stand a chance against him. He knew exactly where to position and when to hit, something which I tend to overthink and struggle with. Cairus actually has a lot of experience with other games like Dead Cells and Hades, so clearly, he's much more used to games like these. He was able to adapt to Conehead for example, just generally taking less hits compared to at the start. He was also more careful with the bomb projectiles, something I tend to notice less in my own gameplay. Though he still had moments where he was getting smashed. The thing about Windblown is that it only takes one hit to mess up your flow. He ran into some trouble with these 2 big guys right here. He had a hard time finding his tempo and even had to use a potion. It's also worth noticing that these enemies move in unison, making it look like an actual chase between the 2. I think what really amazes me in his fights is his creativity when it comes to isolating enemies and finding openings. Moving to a higher ground to bait the jump attack from the enemy to split them apart is something I would have never thought of. Windblown isn't an easy game even for him though, and he still makes rookie mistakes, such as getting too greedy which ended his first run. I did last a bit longer in my second run. It took me about 6 minutes, which is still bad, but at least I improved. As you can see here, it's Conehead guy again, so I lock in and eradicate this high priority threat immediately. I tried to be more careful this time, but I just end up overthinking the projectiles and wasting time. At this point, I'm getting more used to the controls and gaining a bit of confidence. I even dodged the dreaded Conehead's attack quite smoothly, if I may say. Around this part, my inexperience reared its head again, as I accidentally pressed the wrong button and waste my potion. This bothered me so much to the point that I wasn't able to focus properly and ended up taking hits from Conehead guy. This time, there's 2 of them. What makes this enemy so difficult for me is that I couldn't tell how long it would spend charging before attacking, giving me an illusion that I still have time to attack before it does. I pulled through though, so yay me I guess. I even got lost in this part until Kai pointed out that the path was actually above me. Another misclick, another wasted potion. I cry. Thankfully, that didn't help me enough to take damage from these enemies. I also struggled against this guy because the terrain being split between a river was messing with my brain. I kept trying to attack him from the other side. I also wasn't used to the idea of trinkets, so I always forgot to use them in this run. That's why you never see me use them. I tried to kite a lot because I was very low here, but still ended up dying. Kaya starts his second run with me jealous because he got this cool range weapon that I would have wanted to use myself. In both my runs, I basically had the more common weapons, which I wasn't too happy about. I was impressed with the swap moves of the Sirocco. The damage coming out from two sides is such a nice way to handle multiple enemies, which I tend to struggle with. At this point, even Kai still gets thrown off by a conehead guy and takes a hit. Kai actually has to slow down against these guys because the ranged weapon is a bit slow. He typically hates low and hates ranged, so he was quite uncomfortable in this one. For some reason, I find Kai's playstyle to look overly risky, but it always ends up working out somehow. In this part, you can see he's finally gotten the gist of it and no longer looks like he's still trying to figure out his weapons. He just looks way cooler every time. I think these events are a good way to assess how effective your loadout is against multiple types of enemies. But that didn't really seem like a problem because Sirocco is such an effective AoE weapon that melts enemies. I noticed that they actually put a lot of effort into enemy design in moveset like this one, giving you an idea of possible attacks before they even charge. These types of enemy boss moves with the bombs on the ground is typically something I struggle with, but Kai has no problem dealing with it. He was able to make it to the second biome in this run, but he had problems with the new enemies here, which ended this part quite early. Windblown is actually tough because enemies hit like a truck. You only have 100 HP, so about 3 hits can finish you off. I was a bit bummed starting my third run because I got the same weapon again. I felt like I had a smooth start here and was showing some improvements. That is, until I met Conehead Guy again, who got a hit on me. I was definitely learning though, and I even remembered to use trinkets at this point. I'm still pretty greedy though, especially when I feel like I'm close to hitting the threshold for swap combo, which tends to turn out pretty poorly for me. The thing with a heavy blade is, it's a lot slower and heavier than the starter fish knife, and I just couldn't get used to it. I ended up swapping it for the Raven Blade, which I think fits my playstyle better. The terrain being in chunks you have to dash through really messes me up though, and I hate it. The task to simultaneously move between platforms and ensure I am on the right one to enable my attacks to reach this guy is a bit too much for me. This move right here is the one I learned from the master himself. Met with this selection of gifts. I opted for the necromancy one, which heals you for every kill. This may or may not be a foreshadowing of the events to come. Here comes another moment of disappointment for me. I kept trying to chase around this dark meatball and it turns out he's not actually hittable. I cry again. I encountered Sirocco here and thought I'd give it a try. I was struggling against these guys but chose not to use my potion because I thought once I killed one, I would heal from necromancy. Turned out to be a bad plan, and my greed got the better of me again. For Kai's third and final run, he wanted to try using the Cairus as his main weapon this time around. He quickly abandoned that idea though because the man was struggling. I think the big difference between us is that he knows which enemy to target first and how to transition his attacks from one guy to the next as soon as his target dies. I like this fish. Not gonna lie, his dodges are so cool and it just looks so different from my gameplay. It's weird how you can easily tell who's playing just from how the character moves. At this point, he was pretty tired so he was trying to rush through the enemies. He's still crushing the enemies though and uses the split up terrain quite effectively. He just has much higher damage output than me. I guess because he's more efficient with his moves. I like this trinket a lot. It was a shame I was only able to use it for a short period of time during my run. He ended up with 3 HP at this point, but he actually managed to take this 3 HP much further than I would have had. As you can see, damage output goes off and numbers show up much quickly. I don't think I even see these figures in mine. You see this boss fight? Very demure, very effortless. Very impressive. Everything looks so fast to me. I don't even know what he's pressing at this point. He did better on the second biome this time around as he's more familiar with the enemies now. Kai actually told me that if I wanted to focus on quick swap combos, that I should be using the fish knife instead of other weapons, because it only needed 3 hits to trigger. He should have told me that sooner. Explains why he always runs with that though. Enemies here are more difficult. They move faster and have trickier moves. I actually find this fight pretty funny. It's like watching who's a better saw between them. I'd say I'd give points to the enemy though. He's got 2 blades and is definitely more stylish. Kai hates the swirly boy. These guys are run enders by the way. That's it for the runs. Did you guys notice the difference between our gameplay? What did you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. We're also planning on doing a co-op review for this game, so tell us if you want to see that one. If you enjoyed this video, consider giving us a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. See you in the next one.